Hey guys, so CTLS is down again. That's what, 2 or 3 times this week. So I'm going to record these notes for you real quick. They should be in your session resources, but of course, if you can't get into CTLS, then you can't get your session resources, so that doesn't help. So pause this video as you need so that you can write notes down. We're going to talk about food chains and food webs today and the different members and parts of food chains and food webs. So most of our energy comes from the sun. Producers get most of their energy, or I guess they get all of their energy from the sun. Consumers get most of their energy from organisms, like producers, that get their energy from the sun. But the main source of energy for everything on Earth is going to be the sun. There are two different types of energy getting, for the most part. So there's two ways to get energy. One is making your own food or making your own energy, and the other one is to obtain energy from elsewhere. Now, autotrophs are things like plants that can make their own energy, and they're also called producers. Heterotrophs are organisms that get their energy from eating things like producers or other heterotrophs. These are also called consumers. There are 6 different types of consumers. Herbivores eat only plants. Carnivores eat only meat. Omnivores eat both plants and meat. Detrivores eat organic matter, or another word for that is detritus. Let me move my face so you can see. Cover up this fly down here. So they eat organic matter, or another word for that is poop. Another word for that is detritus. Scavengers eat animals that are already dead. And decomposers like fungus and bacteria break down everything else. Food chains are models that show feeding relationships within an ecosystem. They're very basic. They show just one type of feeding relationship. Food chains have some basic parts to them. So they start with a producer. Typically in a food chain, you don't see the sun, but you can know that all the energy starts there. Then you have your consumers. You have your first, second, third, and fourth level consumers, followed by your decomposers. Now, a lot of times food chains don't show your decomposers either. If it's a very complete food chain, it will show your decomposers, but most of them do not show them. Any level in the food chain or a food web is called a trophic level. Here are some examples of trophic levels. You also have your producers, your primary consumers, which are your herbivores, your secondary consumers, which are going to eat those primary consumers. Sometimes they even eat producers. Tertiary consumers, which are just carnivores for the most part. And then your quaternary consumers, which are all carnivores. They're only going to eat meat. Here's another example of a food chain. It's important to note the way the arrows are pointing. So the arrows point to whatever is doing the eating or the way the energy is flowing. So in this food chain, the caterpillar eats the flower, the frog eats the caterpillar, the snake eats the frog, and the owl eats the snake. And again, this is a food chain, so it's only showing one type of relationship. Owls eat more than just snakes, but for the sake of this, we're just looking at one feeding relationship. Here's another example of a food chain. Now, a food web is many food chains together, and it shows several different feeding relationships and several different movement of energy. Here is another example of a food web. Notice the way the arrows are pointing. And yet another food web. Now, typically in class, we would build these ecological pyramids so that you could see how everything is set up, but it's a little more difficult to do them virtually. I can send you all a video so you can see how to make one on your own, so maybe you can keep it on your desk or your table so that you can refer to it as we talk about ecological pyramids later. But an ecological pyramid is just another model similar to a food web that shows how energy flows through an ecosystem. It can show the amount of energy in an ecosystem, it can show the amount of biomass in an ecosystem, or it can show the number of organisms in an ecosystem. But notice how it's still going to be a pyramid. Your producers are going to make up most of the energy, or have most of the energy, make up most of the biomass, and have the most number of organisms as compared to those top level consumers. So this one gives a really good depiction of a biomass pyramid. Now this one doesn't have is not labeled, so it's going to be a little harder for you to tell. But the one thing that you're going to look at is that J. So where it says a million J of sunlight or 10,000 J, J stands for joules, Joules, and that's a unit of energy. So this one is showing the amount of energy in an ecosystem. The 1/10 rule. The reason why each trophic level can support only 1/10 of the amount of living tissue is because each trophic level gains only about 1/10 of the energy from the level below. So what does that mean? That means that 90% is lost as heat, doing the following: running, breathing, reproducing, hunting for food, sleeping, or maintaining an internal body temperature. And so most of this energy is lost. So only 10% of the energy can get passed on to the next level. Here is the energy pyramid that depicts this. We start with 100,000 joules, and if you notice, when you get to the very, very top of the pyramid, there's only 1 joule. That's why there's not very many organisms at the top, because they need to eat way more food to be able to maintain a healthy metabolism. This is a great energy pyramid because it shows organisms getting bigger and bigger, and there's less organisms as you move up. That was a quick look at energy pyramids, food chains, and food webs. Remember to access the notes later if you need to. There is going to be an Explore Learning activity where you'll get to practice this and be able to see food chains and food webs in action. Thank you for watching.